Hi, this is Debbie with Ancestry and Travels. I just thought I'd do another tutorial today on how to break through a brick wall. We all run into a situation where we're just at a loss as to where to find the ancestors that we're looking for. There's a lot of different things to know. First of all, sometimes they went by a nickname, or sometimes they went, instead of by going by their first name, they went by their middle name. So there's a lot of different things that you need to look for in a search. So when you go in for a search, I would suggest that you go in and just put the first initial and just go ahead and search and see what kind of things you can come up with that initial. It depends on how the enumerator during the census, whether they were really asking how to spell the name or if they were just spelling it by the way that they thought it should be spelled. There's just a lot of different things that couldn't go wrong as far as the spellings of the names. So always be sure you look at different spellings. You can also put in a wild card. You can put the first initial and a wild card, which is going to be your, oh, I can't even think what people call it. This little thing, this little star guy. Anyway, you can do that, and you can look through it that way. So there's a lot of different things that you can do in trying to research. The other thing I find, like with my family, my grandmother's last name was Richard, but she said that, but her brother spelled it Richards. So it's just a lot of it has to do with spelling and trying to find different people. Um, what I'm going to look for right now is Elijah Richard. That's my great grandfather. And I know that he was born in Virginia, so you can go in and you can put in their birth. So I know he was born in Virginia. And then I believe his birth date was in 1800. So we'll go in and look and see what comes up for Elijah Richard in 1800. Now, another thing that's interesting, and this is cool, there's Elijah Richards in Shepherdstown, Jefferson, Virginia. I do know that my grandfather, by the 1840 census, he was already in Kentucky. So a lot of times you can look at it this way and try to find different things to look for. And you'll find Richardsons are coming up a lot. You'll find different spellings, Rickards. So Elijah Rickards, birth in 1794 in Virginia. This is that same guy in the 1840 census. This is him. But look, first up here, his name is Elijah Richard. But then down in the 1850 census, they've got him as Elijah Rickards. So like I said, they can change. It just depends on the enumerator and what they see, what they think is going, what they think they heard. A lot of times I'm thinking with my Richards lines that they may have been German, which then it would probably have been Reichert, but then it was anglicized to Richard. So, and stuff like this makes you really think of it that way. But there's just lots of different things you can do. Another thing you need to do is when you're going into a census, when you find a family member in a census record, another thing you need to do is go in and look at families that lived near these families. So a really good thing to do is to go in and look and see who their neighbors are. Because a lot of times they tended to move around with the same people. So as you go through the different censuses, look for patterns. Look for patterns of people that you may find. This here, it says Elijah Richard. Looks like age 60. And it looks like it's saying it's a female. But these, if you notice the B here, that means that they're slaves. They're black. So they were, this is probably, yep, so this is a slave. This is a slave census. So basically, and just so you know, this is not my relative, but I do have relatives that do have slaves in their line, which is sad, but it was something that was happening in those days. But it looks like Elijah Richards had a female slave that was 60 years old. He also had a male slave that was 11 years old. So they didn't, sometimes they put in the names, other times they didn't put in the name. So it just depended. So this, but this is a slave schedule, so it's going to show you who they had in their services at that time. Another thing you can do when you're going in is, what I've done is, if I knew where they came from before, what I will do is I will go in. Let's go into some censuses for fun. I will go in and I will look at a census record, and I will, especially like back in 1790, in the earlier censuses, there just weren't as many people. We weren't as well populated back then. But I will go in and I will, you could get blank census records. You can go on online and get a blank census record for any year in the censuses. And you can go in those blank censuses, and then you can kind of make a map. You can find out who was around, who they were around in each census. A census are only every 10 years. So you go in and you just take each year of the censuses, and you go in and you make a map of who all is in the same area. In the same area that your ancestors in. So in 1790, we're going to look and see Elijah. I do know there are some Elijahs in the 1790 census. I'm going to put in Virginia because that's where he would have been at that time. Now see, these are Richardsons that are coming up as genealogy searches. Okay, Elijah in 1790 had not been born yet. Sorry about that. So let's go by Benjamin, who I believe is his father, and look for him in 1790. And it's saying in 1790 they don't have a Benjamin either. Okay, well, we'll go with William because I know there's a William. I'm pretty positive. In 1790. Not in Virginia. That's very interesting. Let's try Richards, see if that makes any difference. Nope, it's not gonna. So, I did do some mapping of this family, just to kind of give you an idea of some of the things that I do. I go in and I have all my family history folders. I have them actually on an external hard drive because I don't want to blog up my my regular computer with a bunch of stuff. So let's see if I put this. I bet it's probably in under Richards. But I've gone in on several different groups of people, and I've like my McKee line. I went into Pennsylvania because I knew they were in Pennsylvania, and I went ahead and went in and I mapped them along with some other allied families that I knew were around at the time, and then it gave me an idea of who was around them at which times. But what I do is I do an Excel spreadsheet, and I'm not finding the Richard one, so I'll go into the Knox County, Ohio, or the Ohio. Let's see, Excel, I think it's under Excel spreadsheets. Anyway, you just go in and you make an Excel spreadsheet. And the nice thing with your spreadsheets is, now in 1850, just while we're at that, you see right here it says cholera. There was a big epidemic of cholera in the 1850 census, and so there's a lot of people that died between the 1840 census, 1840 and 1850 census. So you can actually find censuses on them, and it's going to show you who died during that time. And this is another thing that would help you maybe if you're hitting a brick wall and it's around this time frame, you might be able to find them in the death censuses instead of the regular censuses. So this is exact toll, probably much higher. Many deaths were missed, it says. But this is people that died, and it tells you their name, first name, last name, their age, what they were doing, when they died. So as long as they died between January of 1849 and January of 1850, they're going to show in this census. In fact, that one right there is showing April of 1850, May of 1850. So it's including anyone that died of cholera at that time. And this is in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania. So pretty sad, but at least they recorded it, so we can at least find our ancestors. Here's a census mapping that I've done. And I suggest you do this. You just go into the censuses and you find out what counties your family name is in. And then you just go in and you make up your census. This is what the census looks like for 1800. Then you go into the county, the township, and then the name of the town that they're in. And I just went in and I just put everybody's name, and then I copied all this one obviously right here, George Moore, he was the only one in his household, age 16 to 25, so he's probably just barely over 21, and that's why they have him done. They didn't know who the head of household is here for the Loves. Thomas Love, Moore, Fry. But then you just go down to the next township, fill it in, next township, and fill it in. But it starts to give you a patterning. I was doing this because these are all allied families that came from Donegal, Ireland to America. And so I went into each of the townships in Allegheny County. I did other counties too. I did Fayette County, Washington County. These are all counties that I knew that my ancestors, before they moved to Ohio, I knew that this is where they were living in the state of Pennsylvania. So I just went in and put all the people that would have anything to do with my line. McKees and Galts. The McKees in Coshocton County married into the Galt family. So those are families you want to find. If you have surnames, if you know your grandmother was a Hamilton and your grandfather was a Gailey, and you know that they married together, a lot of times they didn't just marry strangers. A lot of times they were families that they were closely related to throughout the ages. People in this time, they didn't just travel by themselves. They usually traveled in groups. These are all names that are intertwined with my McKee family. And so, and especially in Donegal, all of these, like the McClintocks, the McConnells, the Stewarts, the Loves, the Moores, all of these family names are people that moved to America from Donegal. So I went through and I took all these given names of all these people that I have a group of people that I do genealogy with. And I just went through and I found all the different surnames that we were researching as a family, trying to find the connections. This here is my grandpa Charles um, in Cross Creek in Washington County in 1800. So basically, and then you can go on and like if there's names that are really, really closely related, you can do different coloring. You could color code this any way you want to, but it's just really nice to have all this information so that you could kind of say, okay, these are the people that were here this year. Then I took people in the 1810 census. I took them from the 1820 census, and I think I may have even gone up to the 1830 census. But I also started in 1790, not just 1800. I started in 1790 and worked my way up to the 1820 or 1830 census. So it's a good idea to get 20 or 30 years worth of censuses on that family person so that you can kind of see if there's patterns, if there's people that are living close to them. A lot of times you can go into that census record and you can, let's see, let's go into, I'm pretty sure they were in North Carolina. At this point, there was some Richards in North Carolina. So let's go in there. And the other thing to keep in mind too, that can be really hard to remember and understand is that state lines and county lines were never set in stone. They moved around all the time. And so your family could have stayed in the same house on the same piece of land for 100 years, but because of the moving of the different land, state boundaries or the different um, county boundaries, then they could be moving from one county to the next. You're thinking they're moving around a lot, and in reality, if you look at the old maps, which you can go in and Google old maps, you'll find out that they really stayed in the same place the whole time. It was somebody else that was moving, not them. So what you would do with this is you would go into a census, and I would start, there's 6 pages or 8 pages, so I would start with page 1, even though I know my ancestors on page 6. I would go ahead and I would just, if you know some names that they're intermarried with, I would look for those names. And I would just go ahead and put right here, it's Robert Avery. So we're going to go ahead and put Robert Avery's family information. And there isn't a lot in, there's younger men, older men, and then women, and then all of them together. In the 1790 census, there's not much at all. Or Charles Briggs and his family. I would just go in and fill in your spreadsheet with the information of the people that you find living near your ancestors. Now, sometimes this one here, these are all alphabetized. Elliot's is a name that we were very using a lot in my research for Donegal. But you'll find that you'll learn allied families. You'll find that a lot of times brothers would marry sisters, or siblings would marry into similar families. So you just need to go in and you find that information and you start mapping it. And I know this is a lot of work, but the really cool thing about this is once you start mapping out these people and you start seeing who they're hanging out with, then if you can't find them in some place, you can look for one of those other family members that you know um, is near and dear, or you can look for the children and figure out where the children are. A lot of times the parents would move one as they got older, they would move with their children and live with their children. So they may not necessarily come up as head of household, they may not pull up at all, but then when you pull up the kids, you find them. So it's just really honestly, it's just a matter of detective work and finding out different ways to find them. And as you go in and learn more about them, the more fun it is, because that's when you start understanding the family dynamics, which is a lot of fun too. But you'll find a lot of times the kids were living near the parents. So I mean, look at all these newbies. There's a bunch of newbies together. So you just go in and you find out who all is in that same um, county, and then you can find same city. But then another thing you can do is like this is not stating um, the city name, but sometimes you can go into North Carolina. This is telling you all the different counties in North Carolina. And then you can say, well, okay. And you can look at a map and you can look and see, okay, is Richmond close to Robeson or is Rockingham close to, and try to find counties that are butt up against those counties, because a lot of times, like I said, those county lines change and stuff. And even though they live right there next door to each other, they can be in a completely different county or a different state. So it's just good to just really reach out and broaden your research, because a lot of times the reason you're hitting the brick wall is you're just not broadening your horizons enough and looking deep enough into other areas, because we get in our mind where we think they are and where they should be, and we don't really reach out and look out for other places that they could be. And that's where you run into a lot of your problems. So this is a good thing. Once you open one of the censuses of North Carolina, you can go in and just click on North Carolina after you're done with the one you're looking at, and it'll give you all the different counties so that you don't have to go back and look. You can just search through. So this makes it a lot faster when you can actually go through and look um, for the people in different states and different counties, and see the different counties. But I just went into, as you saw in my spreadsheet, I went through all the different counties in Pennsylvania that I thought these people would be in, all the different towns within those counties. And it really does give you a picture. One of the things that this did for me is, because I know, because of Y-DNA testing, my male cousin is connected with a Barry McKee, and they're really closely matched. So Barry had his family history clear back to Donegal. So, but yet my generation was a generation farther back than his. So, but still, he helped me know where my Charles McKee had come from. So, with that DNA research. So, and then also his paper trail. So that helped me there. But then I had from Ohio to Pennsylvania, that was a complete gap. I didn't know when they came from Donegal to Pennsylvania, where for sure in Pennsylvania. I did have a clue because one of my grandpa's daughters married a Ashcraft boy from Fayette County. And so that's where I was able to find him and some of my family in Fayette. So it's just, you just look for clues. You've got to always be looking for clues, because there's clues out there. We just have to find them. So happy hunting. If you have any other questions, be sure and pop me in a question. I'll be glad to answer if I have the answer. And if I don't have the answer, I'll find it for you. All right. And I hope that you have a great day. Hope you have a great time finding your family. It's so much fun. I can't tell you how much fun I have doing this. So happy hunting, and until next time, this is Debbie with Ancestry.com, Ancestry and Travels, sorry, AncestryandTravels.com, and I look forward to seeing you again on another one of my tutorials. Have a good day.